Greetings and welcome to the Do Business Better podcast. It's me, your host, Damian Mason, but you already knew that because it said so in the introduction. Got a great show for you today because I've got a great guest. This guy, Bill Guerrero, is the VP for Finance and Administration at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. Here's why he is on this program, because we talk about business, but many people to go into business go to college. Also, college has become, and higher education has become a business. It's not like the old days of Oxford, where a bunch of aristocratic Brits sat around and said, we're going to send our children off to become educated so they may rule the masses. No, Ithaca College is like every other college. It is now sort of a business. We're going to talk about reinventing higher education from the business side. So we're going to talk about business, your business, and you're saying, why do I care? Because you know what? This is going to change a whole lot of stuff. It's going to change what you do with your kids. It's going to change a lot of things that we accept right now in the United States of America because of our educational system. Bill Guerrero, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Damian. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
So yeah, our listeners might be small business owners. They might be people that work in business. Many of them went to college. Not all of them did. Doesn't matter. About what? 1/4 or 1/3 of our populace now goes to college. What's the number? How many people in the United States go to college?
Yeah, I would say it's probably that 1/3 number that you're talking about.
Okay.
Does start college or finish and get an undergrad.
Okay, article I read in the Wall Street Journal here not too long ago says $1.6 trillion, which in this now that the government is just throwing trillion here, trillion there, doesn't sound like much, but $1.6 trillion of student loan debt. We've got a real issue with student loan debt. I'm going to go ahead and just tell you my thoughts. We got too much student loan debt. We've got the colleges that never had to be efficient because they essentially just said, government's going to back these student loans. Why wouldn't we charge 10% more each year for tuition? Hey, let's go ahead and build some new buildings because what the heck? We've got this money coming in. So colleges got fat over the last 30 years. $1.6 trillion of student loan debt, but now that's a bubble. It's going to explode. Am I right?
You are correct. I mean, yeah, there's been a challenge since the 80s. I mean, there's all this research and theories. One of the best one is all the money you raise, you spend. That's the higher ed model. And so if you get the money from federal financial aid or student loans or even fundraising, colleges and universities spend it in some form or fashion. And it could be in your buildings that you talk about. They talk about all the amenities that colleges and universities have now. But any money you raise is the money that you spend. And now what's happening is that money coming in is being significantly impacted with COVID-19. And therefore, all those expenses that you have are now finding, where am I getting the money from? And it's a real revelation of what's happening in higher ed.
Yeah, so the whole system probably was going to get, something was going to get upset anyway because of the way things were trending. Like I said, every day you read about the student loan bubble that's kind of like it was compared to the housing bubble and personal finances and all the people that, went bankrupt and whatnot with that crash in '08. So there was already that going on. Then there was people that were starting to question the whole thing, saying stuff like, oh, wait a minute, man. This college model is broken. You've got this, this staff, these professors that make a lot of money and work about 10 hours a week. So there's people that are questioning it. And then my alma mater, Mitch Daniels, comes in and he upsets the whole academia apple cart because he says, we're going to freeze tuition. We think college is too expensive. And then everybody else now is in sort of a competitive position. Like, wait a minute, why can't we be like Mitch? So it was already going to get screwed up. And now, like you said, if the kids aren't coming to school or they're doing it online, they shouldn't be paying as much, right?
Yeah, I mean, the value proposition is really being challenged. So first and foremost, who can afford 60 grand, let's say at minimum, to go to higher ed anymore? So certainly, when you and I were going to Purdue or University of Connecticut and it cost $5,000 for room, board, and tuition, it is much different now. And so now when you switch to the model of due to COVID, where you have some form of online experience, either fully remote or hybrid, what Mitch Daniels did at Purdue to buy Kaplan, to create Purdue Global, or when you think of what Grand Canyon has done back in your other part of your home, back in Arizona, Grand Canyon University, or Arizona State University, real awesome transitions in their business model going online. But people are questioning it. So questioning the value of liberal arts, questioning, can I use 60 grand when I can just get a job right away, as opposed to spending $250,000 to get a degree? What is the value proposition? So it is completely getting disrupted now. And, it's going to be interesting to see who can really, really innovate. So Mitch Daniels is perfect. He opened that door to try to change the business model before it was forced upon him.
Yeah, he looks. Of course, he was our governor, and then he became the president over there at my alma mater. Well, here's the thing: there's some people that didn't like him because he started firing people, and he said, if we were a corporation, we wouldn't have this. And academia does not like that. They do not like to be compared to business because, after all, they have tweed jackets with pocket, with patches on the elbows.
I wore one today.
And they smoke pipes, right?
Yeah.
And they sit in leather chairs and pontificate. He said, he just started getting rid of people, and then that really got folks mad. And he said, we're not going to charge more, and then he really did charge. Now he does look like quite the innovator because this is all going online. Him buying that Kaplan thing sort of gave credibility to the idea that you can do this online. Are we going to just keep growing in that direction?
I think what's fascinating is where you're saying everyone with tweed jackets and our faculty and staff. Frankly, you have people that make a good living in higher ed, and I would say is universities used to snub their noses at University of Phoenix, Southern New Hampshire, Grand Canyon University, and go, what are you talking about? The quality of education at those universities, they can't be as good as ours because we're in our nice buildings.
Yeah, we have a brick building with ivy growing on the side of it.
Now we all forced to go remote, and all of a sudden we're saying that education is just as good. So the conversation has flipped very quickly.
Well, that was one of the things, Bill, that I wrote down here was perception of online learning. And I have a question mark because that very thing, you and I both know, and we're not snobs, we're not Ivy League snobs, but if a person said, yeah, I got a degree online from Southern New Hampshire University, I'd say, yeah, that's not the same as going to, Michigan State, whatever. But now, and that all the colleges, that was their competitive position was, yes, we're legitimate, we're all this. And now it's kind of like what you've been degrading all the time is kind of like, now we're it. So there's going to be a perception problem, I think, moving forward. And also, like you said, on the value proposition, which we'll get to, perception. How do you combat that?
Yeah, I think schools need to really make the appropriate investment to enhance that learning environment. And so what some of those schools are doing are they're making those acquisitions like Purdue did. University of Arizona actually just made a big acquisition. That's the public definition of what they did in purchasing another online entity. And so everyone's really trying to create, an enhanced value proposition where, hey, you could learn on the ground, in the classroom, either asynchronous or synchronous environments, and therefore claiming that it's a well worth education. It's a tough argument. It's a tough argument because we wouldn't want the classes just to be like this, like a Zoom call. But when I tell you, when you look at all these kind of learning management systems, the ability to use so much different technology from podcasts, from, videos, from, looking at VR, there's so many things that you can do remotely. It's just schools really need to commit to it because, when I think about your book or your other guests in your podcast, there's so many parallels. When I think of, creating a variety of revenue streams, this is where the opportunity, certainly let's say for my school, we didn't have an online presence before. Now we're going to have one. We're going to be really, really good at it, and we can start offering both modalities. And so it really helps you protect your institution. Where before, you would have people say, oh my God, no way would we ever go online. That diminishes our value. But now you need to make that adjustment. And I think we can really leverage it going forward.
Can you talk about revenue streams? Your college, you really sell one thing. General Motors can sell trucks, they can sell cars, or they can make investments into some other thing. And then they also have financing they can sell, or warranties, or whatever. You got one thing. Yeah. And that's it. You sell diplomas. And again, the tweed jacket crowd doesn't probably like to hear that, but that's what they do. They sell diplomas. That's what they do. But there's one other thing that they do. They sell an experience. And you and I both know that part of growing up for us was you're 18, 19 years old, and all of a sudden you're on campus and it's growth mode. It's a real growth time for everybody. You don't get that by sitting and looking at a screen and hearing a person talk. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I think that kind of just recognition of what you just said. Number one is the recognition of that with these schools choosing to bring their students back. That's why University of North Carolina or Michigan State or Notre Dame. I mean, the reality is 18 to 22-year-olds, what do you think you and I were doing then? To think that you're going to bring them back to campus and they're going to adhere to all these rules and regulations and not get together with their friends. It's just, so that kind of reality check is really, really fascinating to me. But the thing is that the maturity, the growth that you have, the mistakes that you make in college is a lot of things that you don't learn in the classroom. And so that you were absolutely right in that experience is part of what college is, but we try not to say that. And I think there's going to be more and more research. There's some awesome books out there now. There's one most recently called Choosing College. And it actually identifies that through research to saying, I'm choosing college to sort of get away from my family, get away from my parents, so I can kind of grow up and figure out what I want to do, because nobody really knows what they want to do when they graduate. And so I think that part of the process of that maturation that college brings is really the definition. And I think I'm glad you brought that up, because we avoid that. We avoid that actual reason why people go to college. I mean, shoot, when I was at 17, I didn't know what the heck. I didn't know anything, even though I thought I did.
It's probably, you're selling one thing, you're selling diplomas, but you're also really selling more than that. And that's where the tough part is. You can't do that on a Zoom call. All right, we're going to get through this thing, whatever, a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. So at some point, we're going to decide that we can't just all hide in our basement over a virus. At least that's my hope, is that that'll happen, because I'm not doing well with this whole thing. But then we're back to campus. You still got the problem, the fundamental problem of higher education needs reinvented, that it is very, very expensive. And it has been in one of those things where it just, it didn't seem to stop. I mean, it was just kind of like we kept charging more. What happens 6 months from now? Take me to spring semester.
Wow. Yeah. So spring semester. So, as we mentioned before the podcast started, was, this conversation is, we just recently made the announcement to go remote. We tried everything that we could, a lot of hard work, a lot of investment, a lot of dollars to really make sure health and safety from a public health perspective, we could do the best we can. The rules and regulations are really, really difficult to meet, and to do them right or to do them excellent. When we thought about the academic experience or the student experience, that, wow, they might just be sitting in their residence hall, taking their classes. That's what they're paying for. So we really made that conscious conversation. But when we look for spring, we want to get all these safety measures put in place. We want to make sure we can do a lot of it excellent. And so we're testing out all those things. And so we recognize the fact, not only just with COVID-19, but other, influenza that's going to pop up, and you're going to see more of that, all the different things that happen. How are you going to protect and make people healthy? Well, you can't do that 100%. We'll just have our systems in place where you're able to take a class in all modalities. And, you're just going to change some of the structures, and be a little bit more flexible with your students. I can
take a class. I can take a class at Ithaca right now only online. But you're selling that. And you're saying by spring, it might be that I can take it online or I can show up in person. And then those are my only options. But same thing. I mean, either one of them, and I still can graduate, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And we're still working out those details, but the flexibility now that did not exist before. The way I look at it is there's no such thing as snow days anymore.
Mhm.
So there's no such thing as snow days. So if certainly up in Ithaca, New York, you would think we have a lot of snowstorms and all that, and it cancels school, and we're all excited about it. But even in the K through 12 side, where there's no snow days anymore, because now you can flip, and that teacher says, "Hey, I'm not coming in to the classroom today. We're taking the class online." Or a student on the flip side says, "Hey, I'm not showing up to class, but I'm still going to log in and watch the class and participate remotely." All that's going to be how the learning is going to be different. And hopefully we're able to get to that and test all those modalities out now.
All right, Bill, let's be honest. I know that you've got to be on the side of, hey, we can do this because your job and the Ithaca College it depends on it. But let's be honest. I know that Biology 108, one of the parts of Biology 108 was we went into a thing that they called the tab, Teach About Biology. You sat down at the table, and the instructor, which was a TA, said, all right, there's like 10 items on this table, and I'm going to spin the table, and all of a sudden the heart lands in front of you. And now you, Bill, have to pick that up and explain to me the 4 chambers of the heart, and then what the order is of how they pump and all that stuff. How the hell do you do that on a Zoom call? Now there is something about touching it. There's something about feeling it. There's something about you holding it up. There's that interchange of stuff. It's better than online. Am I right?
You are right currently. What I will tell you is, one of the things that a lot of the schools and universities, when they say they're going remote or they're bringing on campus, you have to go under the covers. You have to go under the covers to really, really see what classes are online, even though they're saying they're open. So a student may open up their class schedule and they see, oh my God, 4 of my classes and my 5 classes are actually still online, but I'm on the campus. But when you think about, when we describe them as essential personnel or essential type of classes in the medical fields, you get those exemptions where we want to bring them on campus because of what you just mentioned. So we have occupational therapy, we have athletic training, we have physical therapy, we have those type of programs that we need to bring them on campus and have real experiences. Even your music, learning, instruments. What I would tell you when I say now, in the future, and a couple schools do this already. I bet you Purdue does it. I know Case Western University does this. When you put on an Oculus, when you do VR, it is unbelievable what you're able to do now with technology, with any type of that ability to really put you in that frame of mind where you can actually touch the heart or practice surgery or whatever it is. It is pretty impressive what is out there now from a technology aspect. So I think in the future, you'll be able to do it very, very soon.
One thing we talk about, here in the Do Business Better podcast, is we try to make sure we always do parallels to somebody's actual business. And so here's the thing. Academia, higher education is not business, but you would say, no, there's a lot of parallels. In fact, it is kind of a business because let's face it, they have to charge money and think. I read an article about maybe 1 year ago about some smaller colleges and universities that were just closing. I can't remember the one they profiled. It's somewhere like in Virginia, I think, and said, hey, we don't have the enrollment and this is really, our business model doesn't work. Is that going to keep happening? And not because of coronavirus, but maybe just because of everything, cost, moving online, whatever. Do college, the place down the road here that has 800 kids, does it go away?
Absolutely. Unfortunately. Number one is there's not enough customers. So you have a demographic shift from 2008 and 9 after that recession. People just simply didn't have enough children. And so now you have a demographic shift. You have, depending on your numbers of, how many colleges and universities out there, someone may say there's 3,500 colleges and universities. You can get up to 5,000 depending on your actual definition. There's just not enough customers. And that is heresy, let me just tell you, to call a student a customer in higher ed. But, as whatever, political suicide being here, or career suicide being on this thing.
No, I appreciate it, because you know what? That's yes, I'm sure that if you said that in certain settings, be like, they're not customers, just because you couldn't say it about a hospital. They are patients. These are human lives. Well, also, they're how we pay our bills. So no, I got you. And from a demographic standpoint, a lot of people don't know that in the United States of America, just to Bill's point, we are right now at about a 1.7 birth rate. It takes 2.1 to break even, meaning a man and a woman have to have 2.1 children to keep our population even. We're at 1.7. So we are losing population. We're not, because we are getting immigration. But generally, if an immigrant comes here who's 20 years old, they're not going to go be one of your customers. So we're going to lose population, or we're going to have less customers. That's one reason. Is that the only reason that colleges go away?
No, again, my soapbox is the business model is broken. I mean, that is my, in all my different types of presentations is, as we talked about in the very, very beginning, who can afford 60 grand plus to go to college? That 1% or whoever that is, the reality is, if with that small demographics, now you break that and slice that pie to actually who can pay it. Now you're going, do I really, really want to take out that $1.6 trillion and be part of that, to borrow money to go to college, to get the experience that we talked about, let alone the nice Ivy wall, Ivy Tower wall, whatever it is. But, and then you talk about differentiation. What is the difference between my school and another school that's remaining? So when you put all those factors in, COVID-19 just exposed the challenges of the business model. And so when I think about other podcasts, other guests that you've had, think about not having sales for 1 year. How many businesses can handle not having student enrollment for 1 year? And then I would just tell you this, the other piece that's really, really interesting that your audience probably doesn't know is we give away on average 50% of the sticker price for every student. So when I say that, like, it's 60 grand to go and your business is built on that, yeah. Imagine going and getting a car or buying your next house and it costs $300,000 to get the house. And you're like, you know what, Damian, I'm not going to spend $300,000, but if you give me if you tell me it's $150,000, I'm going to go now. That's what colleges and universities are doing. Is if we cost 60, you only have to pay 30. I mean, pretty hard to stay surviving that way.
It's always interested me, and it seems like the smaller schools tend to be more that way, where they'll do a thing where they say, yeah, well, it's 60 grand to go here, but it's really only 30. I was going to bring up another reason that I think that there's some problem. And that, of course, is what just happened a year or so ago, the cheating and admissions thing, where you've got people that are hiring professionals to game the system to get them admittance. And I think education takes really a black eye on that. And then you go, and that was in the news a lot. And one thing, Bill, that I remember reading about that when that cheating thing was going on was how also the prestigious universities seek out applicants. Like, they go and beg people to apply so they can say, we only accepted 8% of our applicants. So that it looks as though they are so selective. And I'm like, well, what purpose does this really serve other than braggadocio, I guess? But it seems to me that that's not what is going to work in the future. Am I wrong or right?
Oh, you are right. You are definitely right. I mean, I think it's the cycle of who gets into what school and not. That was just the tip of the iceberg. And the reality is, we talk about legacy admissions. When you talk about people that can afford to get those counselors to get you into that school, when you think about fundraising, because we all need money in these colleges, universities. And if I have a donor, imagine, that pressure that an administrator would have is like, oh, there's this donor that really wants to get in your school, that wants their child to get into school, and maybe they're not qualified, but they can give you more than the tuition. It might be a different conversation. And so it is, when I think about the self-preservation of our, our 1%. That's higher ed certainly has that ability to keep that going. And, certainly there's those arguments, that are in the newspaper, like what Harvard is going through. But all the Ivy Leagues are struggling with this. But it is, when you talk about access and inclusion, in higher ed, and you get into diversity, equity, inclusion, all those things, the system right now doesn't allow for that equity. And it's not just based on affordability. It's not just affordability to make it. It's a variety of fronts that you talked about.
So 10 years from now, you and I are going to say, hey, remember when I talked about this? Are there going to be one third of these colleges go away in the next 10 years?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
It's all the reasons we talked about. It's the rise of virtual learning. It's the business model is broken. It's tremendously expensive, and you continue to have a lesser amount of customers. Is that the reason?
Yeah. I don't. The demographics don't look great, and even further along. But so the overall pricing model, I don't see any adjusting the pricing model. And then you think you can have more bigger corporations jumping into the foray to provide those skill sets that are needed. So you don't have to spend the $250,000 on your 4-year education. And then you're going to see the mega universities that Purdue is trying to be, Arizona State are already there. University of Maryland is doing it. So you're seeing, this big capture that ultimately you're going to have, as you just said, maybe a third. It's going to be really, really consolidated. Now, I would say the top 50 universities, brand name universities, Duke, Stanford, outside of the Ivy Leagues and stuff like that, they'll be around. Mm-hmm. But the other schools, let's say like mine, private, liberal arts, residential, regional colleges, if you don't have the ability to differentiate yourself from somebody else besides, don't get me wrong, Damian, it's beautiful up here.
Yeah, right. You got the Finger Lakes, and you got, beautiful. The topography is pretty. So you got that. So how else do you differentiate? You say, okay, we're really pretty. We're a really pretty place, Mom and Dad. You should send your kid here.
Yeah. So if we're, in 10 years from now, so let's say we're a very, very environmentally friendly, if we're very healthy and safe for people to get away from the cities. But really the academic programs, you need to continue to reinvent yourself to provide programs that create jobs. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the challenges, is creating those pipelines to respond to what's happening. And higher ed's not known for that. You rest on your laurels, and you really need to continue to innovate there. And I think that's what's going to be accelerated, certainly in the next year. To see who survives and who does not survive.
Somehow I have this idea, because, by the way, if you forgot, this is Bill Guerrero, VP for Finance and Administration at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. And here's the thing. I'm just going to take a wild stab here. I'm not a country clubber. I bet you, I'm not really that's just not where I'm comfortable. I'll bet you, I'll bet you he is not welcome at the faculty lounge, because he's out here saying stuff that has the tweed jacket crowd just going into some sort of convulsions.
I will, here's the thing is, especially when you're a CFO, people have their own perceptions of you and so forth. But I truly just believe the business model needs to be adjusted. I think actually our faculty, and I actually have a really good relationship with a lot of them, because I try to be honest. I try to talk really straightforward, kind of like why I like your book and I like your podcast, because it's really straight talk. It's concise. It doesn't, I guess you don't, there's no fluff in it, and I, maybe that's my, my political suicide, is because I do that. And, but what I would tell you is that's where your true entrepreneurs are. The amount of awesome ideas that exist from our faculty members, they just need to be empowered to do them. And nobody, typically an administrator like a CFO wouldn't listen to them, because you're faculty and I'm administration, there's no way we can talk. I take it a different approach. I actually think they just need to be empowered and giving the skill sets to show them how to, grow a business. And, so I'm hopeful, but there's no doubt there are skeptics out there. And, it takes a while for someone like me to be trusted. And gradually allowed me to be in their lounge. So it takes a little time.
You You grow on people. Okay. Uh, Business lesson. And by the way, about straight talk, this is what I always tell people. I said, it saves time.
Oh, yes.
If you have a problem with it, then also the other thing, there's been, Bill, emotional intelligence has been this highly touted thing for the last, 10 or 15 years. It wasn't there when I was in corporate, but it came not too long after I left corporate. Emotional intelligence. I said, what you're really saying is, that you're supposed to accept that folks don't actually say stuff, and you're supposed to then go through intuition. So what emotional intelligence? I'm supposed to be a mind reader? Because if I'm supposed to be a mind reader, I can't. I only speak words. Psychics, that's not real. So that's about what emotional intelligence is to me, is that I'm supposed to be a mind reader because you don't use real words. You fold your arms.
Well, I would say you probably have a very, very high level of emotional intelligence. As a successful comedian, you have to read a room. I mean, certainly it's really difficult with these Zoom calls to really get a feel for my audience. I mean, so when I think about all the challenges that we're having, in our campus, and we're doing Zoom calls literally with 500 people, 1,000 people, and then you just get the screen of just you, and you're looking at yourself, or the Hollywood Squares version of it, and you're like, and everyone's off video. You have no idea what the feedback is. But when you're in a room, like you understand like what works, what doesn't work, and you adjust.
Yeah, that's definitely. It's you've got to have a real good understanding of it. Lori says I'm better at reading and understanding the feelings of a crowd of 300 than I am of a crowd of one.
I think my wife says the same.
All right, last thing, business lesson, because a lot of people are saying, all right, what can I take away from this? Other than I think it's a neat discussion about higher education is going to have to reinvent. Some of it's going to go away. Some of it's obviously some of these colleges are going to change, and some of them are going to just be gone. What's a business lesson that you would tell anybody? You run a college. And you're saying, all right, this guy that has a dry cleaners, this woman that owns 9 fast food franchises, what can they learn from Bill Guerrero that you know from your business?
Well, I will tell you, the same thing. Listen to your employees. Listen to your students. Don't waste time on hiring consultants. Don't waste time on other people. You know the problems that exist. Solve them as quickly as possible. The challenge in higher ed is everything's about shared governance. I like collaborative environments, but ultimately I don't, the more time you waste on getting answers on something you already know the answer on, you're diminishing the value of your operation. So I always look at the free, the free services that exist. You have clients, you have customers that tell you what you're good at and what you're bad at. You have employees that are on the front line that tell you what you're good at and what you're bad at. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. And that works in all environments. Higher ed is notorious for that, you don't listen to them. And that's where I get back to my faculty conversation. I'm telling you, the most brilliant ideas is actually engaging in a conversation with your faculty and saying, hey, how do we make this school better? And they're like, what do you mean? No one's ever actually asked me that. So that's what I would say. Go back to your people, your customers and your employees to really drive your business growth.
That is some good stuff right there. His name is Bill Guerrero. I very much appreciate him taking time from his apartment in Ithaca College, where he's working remotely. And my name is Damian Mason. Thanks for being here, Mr. Guerrero.
All right. Thank you for the invite.
All right. Till next time, it's the Do Business Better podcast.